Rain hammered against the tall glass windows of the Manhattan penthouse, turning the city lights into long, trembling streaks. Inside, the place looked perfect, polished, expensive, marble floors shining, the faint scent of bergamot from a candle Daniel liked, and a half-opened Tiffany box left on the dining table. But the perfection ended there. On the cold stone floor near the kitchen island, Emily Carter lay curled on her side, one hand gripping her swollen belly, the other clawing helplessly against the smooth tile as a wave of pain shot through her body. Her breath came in sharp, broken gasps. She tried to lift herself, but the stabbing pressure in her abdomen forced her right back down. She felt moisture warm beneath her, the terrifying, unmistakable sign that something was very wrong. Her heart raced. 7.5 months. Too early, too dangerous. And she was alone. Or at least, she was alone in the way that mattered. From the living room, muffled voices drifted toward her, one male, low with annoyance, and one female, light and dismissive. Emily recognized both instantly, Daniel and Vanessa. The woman who shouldn't be in her home, who shouldn't be anywhere near her marriage, who shouldn't be laughing softly on the same night. Emily felt her child twisting painfully inside her. Emily forced her voice out, shaky, cracking. "Daniel, please. I need help." The talking stopped, but only for a second. Then came heels tapping across the hardwood floor, and Vanessa's face appeared around the corner, perfect makeup, a smug tilt to her lips. Emily tried to push herself up again, but the pain doubled her over. Vanessa's eyes flicked down at her, amused rather than concerned. "What happened now?" Vanessa said. Emily's throat tightened. "I'm not, please. Something's wrong. Get Daniel. I need—" Before she could finish, another cramp tore through her, so sharp she let out a small scream. Vanessa stepped back as if the sound offended her. Daniel finally walked into view, the light from the chandelier catching the silver of his Rolex. His expression wasn't fear, wasn't worry. It was irritation. "Emily, stop," he said sharply. "You're embarrassing yourself." She stared at him, stunned. Embarrassing herself? She pressed a trembling palm to her belly. "Daniel, the baby, something's happening. Please help me stand. Please call someone." Daniel didn't move toward her. He didn't kneel beside her. He didn't even bend down. Instead, he exhaled heavily, the kind of sigh he used when a deal went bad or traffic ruined his schedule. "Emily, we talked about this," he snapped quietly. "You can't keep doing this every time I'm with a client." "Client," he called Vanessa, a client. Vanessa crossed her arms, eyes glinting with satisfaction, and Daniel reached out, not toward Emily, but toward Vanessa, pulling her roughly behind him, as if Emily were the threat. The pain pulsed again through Emily's abdomen, stronger, hotter, terrifying. Tears blurred her vision. She reached out a weak hand toward Daniel, desperate. "Daniel, please. Our baby." He stepped back. "Get up if you're really hurt," he said coldly. "You always exaggerate." Emily stared at him, breath shaking, and in that moment something inside her beyond the pain broke. She realized he wasn't going to help her. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Her fingers brushed the edge of the kitchen cabinet, searching blindly until they touched something familiar, the smooth case of her iPhone lying on the floor where she dropped it earlier. With her last ounce of strength, she dragged it closer, pulled it toward her chest, and tried to unlock it through tears. Behind her, she heard whispered voices, Daniel hissing quietly at Vanessa to ignore her, Vanessa laughing under her breath. Emily pressed the emergency button. The call rang, and then someone picked up. As Emily struggled to speak, something happened behind her that would change everything forever. He stepped back. She imagined someday she'd marry a kind man, have a small house, maybe 2 kids, and live close to her parents. As Emily struggled to speak, something happened behind her that would change everything forever. She remembered stepping out of the taxi the first night, suitcase in hand, staring up at buildings so tall her neck hurt. Manhattan felt electric, noisy, alive, like it had a heartbeat of its own. She checked into a modest hotel, grabbed a Starbucks from the corner, and told herself she'd enjoy the trip but stay focused on her sessions. Then she met him, Daniel Carter. She imagined someday she'd marry a kind man, have a small house, maybe 2 kids, and live close to her parents. "I'm so sorry," she blurted, flustered. He smiled then, warm and disarming. "No harm done. Though if my laptop had fallen, I might have had to marry you as compensation." Emily laughed too loudly. She'd later think, but something about him made her feel seen in a way she hadn't before. He introduced himself as a financial strategist who often attended medical conferences to meet clients. They ended up talking for nearly an hour about everything New York, her work as a nurse, his long hours on Park Avenue. He listened like her life fascinated him, like every story mattered. That night, he messaged her, inviting her to dinner. Somewhere with a view. She hesitated for a moment. This wasn't her. She didn't go to fancy dinners with handsome strangers, but she said yes. It happened in the conference lobby. Emily was reviewing her notes when a man in a tailored navy suit approached the coffee station. He looked like he stepped straight out of a Wall Street magazine, sharp jawline, slick tie, posture confident but controlled. When she accidentally bumped his arm reaching for a stir stick, his MacBook almost slipped. Over the next few months, Daniel visited Ohio often. He charmed her parents, brought flowers, talked about how she deserved so much more than a small-town future. He made her feel special, chosen, almost lifted out of her old life. When he asked her to move to Manhattan, she hesitated. Her job, her parents, her simple existence. But Daniel painted a future so bright, it felt foolish to say no. "You'll love it," he promised, "and I'll take care of you." Emily believed him. She packed her belongings, hugged her parents goodbye, and boarded a plane toward a life she didn't yet know would unravel piece by piece. Because beneath Daniel's perfect smile was a truth she couldn't see then, a truth she was about to learn the hard way. And the first sign of that truth revealed itself on her very first night in Manhattan. Emily's first night in Manhattan should have felt magical. Daniel had picked her up from LaGuardia in his sleek black Mercedes, the city lights reflecting off the hood like scattered stars. He held her hand as they drove, pointing out landmarks, Central Park, Madison Avenue, the glittering skyline stretching endlessly ahead. She felt small but hopeful, certain she was stepping into the life she'd been promised. But it didn't take long for the cracks to show. When they arrived at the penthouse, Emily stood in awe. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Central Park, the kind of view she'd only seen in movies. A marble kitchen, a soft gray living room, a balcony that seemed to hang over Manhattan itself. It should have felt like paradise. Instead, there was a strange chill in the air, like the space belonged to Daniel alone, and she was just visiting. He gave her a brief tour before answering a few work messages on his iPhone, pacing near the window. Emily wandered into the bedroom, touched the edge of the neatly arranged pillows, and told herself the uneasiness was just nerves. A new city, a new beginning. But at dinner, the tone shifted. "She won't be working for a while," he said, smiling tightly. "She's adjusting to the city. It's a lot for her. Tomorrow we'll get you something sharper," he said casually. "Living here means looking a certain way." Emily blinked, unsure how to respond. "I thought this was fine for dinner at home." "It's fine," he said. "But once you settle in, you'll see. Manhattan has a standard." She let it go. People in Ohio always dressed simply. Maybe she just needed time. But the comments continued. The next morning, when she FaceTimed her mom, Daniel walked by, glanced at the screen, and later said, "Maybe don't tell your family everything. They can be overwhelming." Overwhelming? Her parents were the gentlest people she knew. When he introduced her to a few co-workers over brunch, he lightly squeezed her arm every time she spoke, as if guiding her words. And when one of them asked about her nursing background, Daniel cut in before she could answer. "What happened now?" Vanessa said. Emily tried to laugh it off, but something stung inside her. She hadn't said she wouldn't work. She hadn't even decided yet. But Daniel seemed to be deciding for her. Later that evening, while she unpacked, she noticed he'd already cleared a drawer for her, just one. Not a closet, not half the dresser. A single drawer. The message felt subtle but unmistakable. This space wasn't theirs. It was his. "She won't be working for a while," he said, smiling tightly. "She's adjusting to the city. It's a lot for her." It didn't feel like protection. It felt like being monitored. It didn't feel like protection. It felt like being monitored. Then came the night she mentioned wanting to apply to a nursing job near Midtown. She'd found a listing online and hesitantly brought it up while he reviewed documents on his MacBook. He didn't look up. No. Not yet. Why not? She asked quietly. Because, he said, closing the laptop, I need you focused here, on the home, on us. A job will distract you. Distract her. From what? She opened her mouth to respond, but his expression made her stop. The softness she used to see was gone. Something colder sat in its place. It was the first time she truly felt fear, small, fleeting, but sharp enough to lodge in her chest. And the very next morning, Daniel would give her a new rule that made that fear grow even stronger. Vanessa's smile was sweet, in the way poisoned honey might be sweet. So this is the wife, she said, her eyes scanning Emily's dress as though grading it. Emily stared at him. Why would I? It's just better this way, he cut in. There are people in this city who take advantage of newcomers. I don't want you falling for anything. She nodded, though it didn't feel right. But she had grown used to nodding, to staying quiet, to keeping the peace. She didn't know that rule had nothing to do with scammers and everything to do with one woman. The first time Emily heard the name Vanessa, it was just a whisper in passing. Daniel mentioned her at dinner, calling her a PR specialist the firm works with. Nothing alarming, nothing suspicious, just a name. But a few days later, while Emily was folding laundry, she heard Daniel laughing on the phone, really laughing, like he used to in the early days of their relationship. She peeked into the living room. He stood near the window, shoulders relaxed, voice warm in a way she barely recognized anymore. When he hung up, she asked gently, "Who was that?" She nodded, though it didn't feel right. But she had grown used to nodding, to staying quiet, to keeping the peace. The first time Emily heard the name Vanessa, it was just a whisper in passing. Daniel mentioned her at dinner, calling her a PR specialist the firm works with. Nothing alarming, nothing suspicious, just a name. Work, he said too quickly. Then he kissed her cheek and added, "Don't worry about it." He insisted she wear a new dress. He picked out a sleek black gown far more revealing than anything she was comfortable with. She felt exposed walking through the glittering halls filled with polished marble, dim chandeliers, and people dressed like royalty. Daniel guided her through the room with a stiff hand on her back, smiling wide for everyone but her. Then Emily saw her, a tall woman with chestnut hair, sharp cheekbones, and a red dress that drew every eye. Vanessa Reed. She stood next to Daniel's colleagues, laughing in a way that carried across the room, and when she turned to face Daniel, her expression shifted into something almost intimate, like they shared a private joke. Daniel walked up to her without hesitation. "Emily," he said, placing a hand on Emily's lower back. "This is Vanessa. She handles public relations for some of our more delicate clients." Over the next few weeks, she heard the name Vanessa more often in snippets from calls, in rushed explanations, in Daniel's faint cologne lingering longer than usual after he came home late. But the real shift happened when Daniel invited Emily to a charity gala at the Plaza Hotel. Emily forced a polite smile. "Nice to meet you." Vanessa leaned in slightly, her voice soft but cutting. "Daniel talks about you. You must be very patient." Emily blinked. "Patient? Oh, just with how busy he is." Vanessa gave Daniel a look, one Emily couldn't quite read but didn't like at all. Throughout the evening, Emily noticed little things. Vanessa standing too close, Daniel laughing too quickly at her jokes, the way Vanessa's hand grazed his arm as if testing boundaries. When Emily excused herself to use the restroom, she caught their reflections in a mirror near the hallway, Vanessa leaning in, Daniel not moving away. A cold wave washed through her, but she told herself she was imagining it. That Daniel was just networking. That she was tired. Pregnant. Emotional. "Emily," he said, placing a hand on Emily's lower back. "This is Vanessa. She handles public relations for some of our more delicate clients." And 2 nights later, Emily would find the first undeniable sign that Vanessa wasn't just a coworker. 2 nights after the gala, Emily stood barefoot in the penthouse bathroom, staring at the faint pink lines that would change everything. Her hands trembled not from fear, but from overwhelming joy. A baby. Their baby. A piece of her and Daniel. She pressed a hand over her belly, even though nothing had changed on the outside. Inside, though, her world bloomed. "I know," she said, "but I found something. A note in your jacket." Daniel returned home late that evening, smelling faintly of expensive cologne and the crisp winter air of Park Avenue. Emily hurried toward him, heart pounding with good news. "Daniel," she said, her voice bubbly, I have something to tell you." She didn't know that this night marked the moment Vanessa stepped fully into their marriage quietly, confidently, like someone entering a room already belonging to her. She didn't know that this night marked the moment Vanessa stepped fully into their marriage quietly, confidently, like someone entering a room already belonging to her. For a moment, silence filled the room. Not awe, not joy, silence. Daniel stared at the test as though it were a problem he had to solve. Emily waited, smile fading slowly as she searched his face for any sign of happiness. Over the next few months, Daniel visited Ohio often. He charmed her parents, brought flowers, talked about how she deserved so much more than a small-town future. He made her feel special, chosen, almost lifted out of her old life. When he asked her to move to Manhattan, she hesitated. Her job, her parents, her simple existence. But Daniel painted a future so bright it felt foolish to say no. She blinked. "Yes, I took 3. He nodded, not meeting her eyes. "Okay. Well, that's big news." "Big news?" Emily laughed nervously. "Daniel, we're having a baby." His jaw tightened. "Emily, do you know what this means for my schedule, for the next quarter, for everything I'm building?" Her stomach dropped. "I thought you'd be happy." "I'm not unhappy," he said quickly. "It's just the timing is complicated." Complicated. That was the word he chose. Emily swallowed the hurt forming in her throat. She didn't want to cry, not when she had imagined falling into his arms, celebrating, maybe even dancing in the kitchen like they once did. Instead, she stood still, holding the test in both hands like a fragile ornament that might break if she moved too fast. "We'll figure it out," she said softly. "Yeah," Daniel replied, already pulling out his iPhone, scrolling through emails. "We will." That night, while Emily lay awake imagining baby names, Daniel slept soundly back-turned, breathing steady, as though nothing had changed. But the next day, something did change. "I know," she said, "but I found something. A note in your jacket." Still, she tried to focus on the baby. She ordered soft blankets from Amazon, saved nursery ideas, and scheduled her first prenatal appointment. She told her mom she was pregnant, listening to her mother cry with joy over the phone. But even through the happiness, Emily avoided telling her family the truth that she felt more alone than ever. And then it happened. While doing laundry, Emily found Daniel's suit jacket with a faint scent. She recognized instantly a floral perfume from the gala. Vanessa's perfume. Her heart thudded painfully. She searched the pockets, not wanting to but unable to stop herself. Inside, she found a folded note in elegant handwriting. "Last night was unforgettable. Tell me when you can meet again." Finally he spoke. "Are you sure?" Emily sank onto the bed, the note trembling in her hands. She felt the baby flutter, tiny, delicate, trusting. Tears welled in her eyes, hot and overwhelming. She wanted to scream, but instead she pressed a hand over her belly, whispering, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But the worst part wasn't the note. The worst part was that deep inside, she already knew this wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. And only days later, Daniel's coldness would turn into the first act of real violence. The days after finding Vanessa's note felt like drifting through fog. Emily moved through the penthouse carefully, quietly, as if any sudden sound might shatter the fragile world she was trying to hold together. She cooked meals Daniel didn't eat, left messages he didn't answer, and slept on her side of the bed while he stayed out later and later, coming home with the faint smell of perfume that wasn't hers. At first, she tried to tell herself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe the note wasn't from Vanessa. Maybe he was stressed. Maybe pregnancy was making her paranoid. But every time she breathed in the floral scent lingering on his shirts, the truth pressed harder on her chest. Then came the night everything shifted. Emily had prepared a small dinner, simple pasta, bread, and a side salad. She wanted to talk to him calmly, gently, without accusing. She had rehearsed the words all afternoon while folding baby clothes she ordered from Amazon. When Daniel finally walked in, well past 10, she felt the familiar jolt of hope rise inside her. The days after finding Vanessa's note felt like drifting through fog. Emily moved through the penthouse carefully, quietly, as if any sudden sound might shatter the fragile world she was trying to hold together. She cooked meals Daniel didn't eat, left messages he didn't answer, and slept on her side of the bed while he stayed out later and later, coming home with the faint smell of perfume that wasn't hers. For the first time in months, she felt hope. Maybe this was what they needed. Maybe a child would soften Daniel, bring them back to the way they used to be, the kind couple who walked through Central Park holding hands and dreaming about the future. She held the pregnancy test close to her chest, breathing in the moment before everything shifted again. "Daniel," she said softly, "can we talk for a minute?" Silence filled the room. Not the tired kind, this was sharp, cold. "What note?" he asked, his voice controlled. She reached for it on the counter, unfolding it with trembling fingers. This. Daniel began coming home even later. He claimed it was work, new clients, endless meetings. Emily wanted to believe him, but there were moments, small ones, that chipped away at her trust. A lipstick stain on his sleeve that wasn't hers. A receipt for 2 glasses of wine at a rooftop bar she'd never been to. His phone lighting up with messages he wouldn't let her see. "I was doing laundry," she whispered. "It fell out." He paced toward the window, gripping the note so tightly it crumpled. "You're unbelievable." "Daniel, I'm not trying to fight," Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm pregnant. I just want us to be honest with each other." He turned then, and the look in his eyes made her step back. "You think you have the right to question me?" he demanded. "You think because you're carrying my child you suddenly get to police my every move?" Daniel snatched it from her hand, eyes narrowing. "You went through my pockets?" Daniel's voice rose, sharp as a blade. "There's nothing to understand. You're imagining things because you're lonely. And emotional. And bored." The words hit hard, each one carving deeper into her. "I'm doing my best," she whispered. "Well, your best isn't good enough," he snapped. The heat behind his anger grew so fast Emily barely had time to process it. She stepped forward, quiet but firm. "Daniel, I deserve to know if something is going on." That was when it happened. He moved so suddenly she didn't see it coming. His hand closed around her upper arm hard. Too hard. He pushed her back just enough for her body to hit the edge of the kitchen counter. Not enough to injure her severely, but enough to make her gasp in pain and instinctively protect her belly. "Stop acting like a victim," he hissed. Emily froze. The shock was worse than the pain. Daniel had never grabbed her like that before, never crossed the line physically. Her breath quivered. "Daniel, I'm pregnant. Please don't touch me like that." He released her with a frustrated exhale, turning away, running a hand through his hair. "If you didn't push me, I wouldn't lose my temper," he muttered. Emily sank onto a chair, holding her belly. She felt her baby shift gently under her hand, as if reacting to her fear. Tears filled her eyes, but she forced them back. She couldn't cry. Not now. Not in front of him. Daniel grabbed his keys again. "I'm going out. At this hour," she whispered. He didn't respond. The door slammed a second later. Emily remained frozen at the table long after the elevator dinged. The penthouse felt colder than ever before. Glass, marble, metal, nothing soft or safe. Not for her, not for the baby. She pressed her forehead to the table, gripping the edge to keep herself from collapsing completely. She couldn't deny it anymore. The man she moved states for, left her family for, trusted with her future, he was slowly becoming a stranger. Her breath quivered. "Daniel, I'm pregnant. Please don't touch me like that." He didn't respond. The door slammed a second later. The next morning, Emily woke with her arm throbbing a deep, dull ache beneath the skin. When she rolled up her sleeve, a dark bruise had bloomed overnight, ugly and undeniable. She stared at it, heart pounding, telling herself not to panic. Stress could hurt the baby. Panic could hurt the baby. She repeated that over and over like a prayer. She just needed to get through her prenatal appointment, breathe, and act normal. But when she arrived at the clinic, Dr. Grace Martinez took one look at her and seemed to know something was wrong. "Emily," Dr. Grace said softly, guiding her into the exam room. "You look pale. Sit down, sweetheart. Let's check on you and the baby." "Does it hurt when I press here?" Dr. Grace asked, lightly touching the edge of the bruise. A minute passed, then 2. Finally, the familiar rhythmic thumping filled the room, the baby's heartbeat. Strong, alive, present. Emily let out the breath she'd been holding. "Thank God." Dr. Grace smiled gently. "Your little one seems healthy. But you—" Her voice softened as she wiped Emily's arm to clean the gel. "You're shaking." Emily swallowed hard. "I'm just tired." Dr. Grace lifted her sleeve to check her blood pressure and stopped cold when she saw the bruise. Her eyes met Emily's. Not accusing, not shocked, just knowing. "That wasn't from a fall," she said quietly. The air felt suddenly thin. Emily pulled her sleeve down quickly. My arm hit the counter last night." "Does it hurt when I press here?" Dr. Grace asked, lightly touching the edge of the bruise. Emily winced. "A little." "That wasn't from a fall," she said quietly. The air felt suddenly thin. Emily pulled her sleeve down quickly. My arm hit the counter last night." "Does it hurt when I press here?" Dr. Grace asked, lightly touching the edge of the bruise. A minute passed, then 2. "Does it hurt when I press here?" Dr. Grace asked, lightly touching the edge of the bruise. A minute passed, then 2. Emily hesitated. Silence answered for her. "And does he know you're here alone today?" Dr. Grace asked. Emily nodded. "He's busy with work." The doctor's expression darkened in a protective way, like someone who had seen too many women walk into her office carrying bruises they didn't want to name. "Emily," she said softly, "you and your baby deserve to be safe. I want to give you some resources." She reached into a drawer and handed Emily a small card, simple, plain, with a phone number. Domestic Violence Support Services. Emily recognized it immediately, but seeing it in her hand made her stomach twist. "I'm not one of those women," Emily whispered, voice shaking. "You are any woman," Dr. Grace replied gently. "And any woman deserves safety." "Emily," she said softly, "you and your baby deserve to be safe. I want to give you some resources." "Then that's all the more reason not to face this alone," Dr. Grace said. "I can refer you to a social worker. Someone who understands situations like this. Someone who can help you plan, if you choose to." Emily wiped her eyes with trembling fingers. "Daniel would never forgive me." "Daniel doesn't need to forgive you," Dr. Grace said. "He needs to stop hurting you." The words hit Emily like a quiet truth she had been avoiding for too long. She tucked the card into her purse, not ready to admit anything out loud, but unable to deny what her body already knew. Something was breaking inside her. Something she couldn't tape back together with excuses or hope. As she left the clinic, her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Don't be late. We have dinner plans." Dinner plans. After last night, as she left the clinic, her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. And when she arrived home that evening, she would discover the most terrifying change in Daniel yet. "Don't be late. We have dinner plans." Dinner plans. After last night, when Emily stepped back into the penthouse that evening, she felt it immediately something was off. The lights were dim, the curtains drawn tight against the Manhattan skyline, and the air felt thick, heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Daniel wasn't usually home this early, but his Mercedes was already parked downstairs, gleaming under the lobby lights like a warning signal. Dinner plans. After last night, he appeared from the hallway, already dressed in a crisp charcoal shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes scanned her as though evaluating damage. Dinner plans. After last night, her stomach tightened. "I had my phone on silent during the scan. I wasn't ignoring you." Dinner plans. After last night, he poured himself a drink, swirling the liquid in the glass before taking a slow sip. Emily's breath caught. "My behavior?" Daniel leaned against the table, shoulders tense. You've been emotional, dramatic, accusing me of things, snooping in my clothes, making me look like the bad guy. I wasn't snooping, Emily said quietly. I found the note by accident. He laughed, a low, humorless sound. You always have an excuse, don't you? Emily felt tears sting her eyes, but she kept her voice steady. Daniel, I'm trying to talk to you. I'm trying to save our marriage. Daniel stepped closer, towering over her. Our marriage doesn't need saving. You need stability. And discipline. The word discipline made her chest tighten with fear. I'm pregnant, she whispered. I'm doing my best. I just want honesty. Daniel's jaw clenched. Honesty? You want honesty? He downed the rest of his drink and set the glass down harder than necessary. Fine. I'm tired, Emily. Tired of your weakness. Tired of your suspicions. Tired of walking on eggshells around you. Her voice cracked. You've been coming home late. You've been hiding things. Because you can't handle the truth, he snapped. You're too fragile, too sensitive. Emily stepped back, her hand instinctively shielding her belly. Daniel, please. I don't want to fight. He stared at her for a long moment, chest rising and falling with quiet rage. Then he said the words that struck deeper than any bruise. I don't want this version of you. The needy, emotional, clingy one. I miss the woman I met, confident, easy, agreeable. I'm pregnant, Emily whispered. I'm exhausted, but I'm still me. Are you? He asked coldly. Because lately, you're nothing but a burden. The room went still. The chandelier above them hummed faintly. Emily felt something inside her fracture quietly, painfully like a thin piece of glass, finally giving way under too much weight. She steadied herself, breathing slowly for the baby. Daniel. You're scaring me. His eyes snapped toward her. Good, he said. Maybe fear will make you listen. Emily's pulse thundered. I won't stay here if you talk to me like this. Daniel stepped forward suddenly, grabbing her wrist so tightly she cried out, You're not going anywhere. Do you understand me? I won't have you embarrassing me. I won't have you ruining everything. Emily twisted her arm, trying to break free. You're hurting me. Please let go. He didn't. Not until her knees buckled and she sank into the chair behind her. Only then did he release her, breathing hard as if she had attacked him. Emily stared at her wrist, already reddening. Her skin burned. Her heart ached. Her baby kicked, startled. And in that moment, Emily realized this wasn't a marriage anymore. It was captivity. Daniel paced toward the window, gripping the railing as if trying to compose himself. Dinner's ruined, he muttered. I'm going out. He grabbed his coat and keys. The door slammed. Daniel leaned against the table, shoulders tense. You've been emotional, dramatic, accusing me of things, snooping in my clothes, making me look like the bad guy. It was captivity. And the very next day, she would discover proof that Daniel's affair wasn't just real, it was far more dangerous than she imagined. He grabbed his coat and keys. The door slammed. Emily sat frozen for a long time, staring at the space he'd left behind. Tears slipped silently down her face. She pressed both hands over her belly, whispering, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, baby. And the very next day, she would discover proof that Daniel's affair wasn't just real, it was far more dangerous than she imagined. It was captivity. But she had an appointment with the social worker Dr. Grace recommended, and she couldn't afford to fall apart. Not yet. She shouldn't look. She knew she shouldn't. She shouldn't look. She knew she shouldn't. Inside was a receipt from the Ritz-Carlton bar dated 2 nights ago. Champagne for 2. A handwritten message on the back. Next time, no interruptions. There was a lipstick kiss mark next to it. The same floral scent lingered faintly on the paper. But as she sat down, something else fell from the envelope. A small business card. On the back, a scribble in Vanessa's elegant handwriting. He said she's unstable, that she's ruining his life. I'll help you if things go wrong. Emily's breath stopped. Unstable. Daniel was building a story. One he could use. One that could take everything from her. The card trembled in her hand. Something icy ran down her spine. Vanessa wasn't just sleeping with Daniel, she was part of a plan, a dangerous one. Emily shoved the card into her purse and left the penthouse, struggling to control her breathing. Her mind raced with questions she couldn't answer. Had Daniel told people she was mentally unwell? Was Vanessa helping him create a narrative to use against her? And why did Vanessa care enough to write that message? The elevator doors opened, and as she stepped into the lobby, the building's concierge, an older man named Frank, called out gently, "Mrs. Carter, you okay? You're looking a little pale." Emily forced a smile. "Just a rough night." Frank hesitated before leaning closer. "If you ever need help, you just say the word." The kindness nearly broke her. She nodded and hurried outside before the tears could fall. She rode in the back of a taxi, watching the city blur past. The nausea wasn't from pregnancy, it was fear. Pure, sharp fear. Daniel wasn't just cheating, he was preparing something that involved her reputation, her stability, maybe even custody of their child. Emily forced a smile. Just a rough night. They sat across from each other in a quiet room with soft lighting. The kindness nearly broke her. She nodded and hurried outside before the tears could fall. That was all it took. At the social worker's office, a calm woman named Deborah welcomed her in. She had soft gray hair, warm eyes, and a gentle voice that made Emily feel small but safe. That was all it took. They sat across from each other in a quiet room with soft lighting. Emily's breath stilled. "Because he grabbed me?" At the social worker's office, a calm woman named Deborah welcomed her in. She had soft gray hair, warm eyes, and a gentle voice that made Emily feel small but safe. The words poured out of Emily, not everything, but enough. She described the arguments, the shifting rules, the grip on her arm, the late nights, the perfume, the note in the jacket, and now the card in the envelope. She didn't cry until she reached the part where Daniel said she was a burden. "He would," Deborah said softly. "And he might already have started." Emily's breath stilled. "Because he grabbed me? You start protecting yourself. And your baby." Deborah paused. "And you gather proof." Emily nodded slowly, fear and determination mixing in her chest. But as she left the building, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. A single sentence that made her blood run cold. "You should watch your back, sweetheart." Signed, V. And that night, Daniel would do something that proved the threat was far more real than she ever imagined. Emily returned to the penthouse that night, with her pulse still racing from Vanessa's message. The city outside sparkled against the dark sky, but inside, everything felt suffocating. She pressed her hand to her belly, whispered, "I'll keep you safe," and tried to steady her breathing as the elevator climbed upward. But the moment the doors slid open, she knew something terrible was waiting. Laughter, loud, careless, echoing down the hallway like a warning bell. Daniel's voice, and Vanessa's. Emily froze in place. No, not here, not again. She stepped inside slowly, heart pounding, and followed the laughter toward the living room. The sight hit her like a punch. Vanessa sat comfortably on their white leather couch, legs crossed, holding a glass of wine. Her red lipstick looked fresh, her smile smug. Daniel stood near the bar cart, pouring himself another drink, relaxed in a way Emily hadn't seen in months, not with her, at least. Emily's voice cracked. "Why is she here?" Daniel didn't even turn around. "We needed to talk." "In our home?" Emily whispered. "Without telling me?" Vanessa laughed softly, tilting her head. "Oh, honey, you weren't supposed to be back yet." Emily felt her stomach twist. "Get out, Vanessa." Daniel finally looked at her, and his eyes were ice. "Don't talk to her like that." Emily stared at him, stunned. "She threatened me. She sent me a message." "Show me," Daniel demanded. Emily hesitated. "I deleted it." Daniel smirked. "Convenient." Vanessa shrugged innocently. Maybe she imagined it. Hormones can do that. The way she said hormones made Emily feel small, unstable, fragile. Exactly what Daniel wanted people to think. Emily felt tears sting her eyes, but she fought them back. "Daniel, this is our home. I'm pregnant with our child. And you are tired," Daniel snapped. Tired of your accusations. Tired of your paranoia. Tired of you embarrassing me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, but not his anger. You want to talk about embarrassment? Let's talk about the stunt you pulled today. Emily blinked in confusion. What stunt? Visiting a social worker behind my back. Her blood went cold. How? How did you know? He held up his phone. Do you think I wouldn't be notified when my wife uses our insurance for mental health services? Mental health services. He said it loudly on purpose, so Vanessa could hear. So it would sound like Emily was unstable. Exactly the narrative he was crafting. Her blood went cold. How? How did you know? Mental health services. Emily stepped back as if struck. Vanessa stood and walked toward her, stopping just inches away. Daniel told me you've been fragile. I see it now. Emily clenched her jaw. Get out of my home. He said it loudly on purpose, so Vanessa could hear. So it would sound like Emily was unstable. Exactly the narrative he was crafting. Her blood went cold. How? How did you know? Emily's voice rose before she could stop it. You don't get to talk about my marriage. Suddenly, Daniel slammed his glass on the table so hard it shattered. Emily jumped. Enough, he roared. You're embarrassing yourself. And me. Her blood went cold. How? How did you know? Emily's voice rose before she could stop it. You don't get to talk about my marriage. Suddenly, Daniel slammed his glass on the table so hard it shattered. Emily jumped. You're stressing me out, he shouted back. You're unstable, Emily, and I'm done covering for you. She felt the room tilt. Covering for me? Daniel grabbed his coat, fury radiating from him. I'm going to the firm. Vanessa is coming with me. Emily stared at him in disbelief. You're leaving her here with me? No, Vanessa said cheerfully, slipping on her coat. I'm leaving with him. Daniel stepped past Emily without a single glance. When you calm down, we'll talk. But if you keep acting like this, don't expect me to protect you. In court, the door slammed, the sound sharp and final. Emily stood alone in the silent penthouse, shaking uncontrollably. She felt the baby move frightened, restless, responding to her stress. She sank to the floor, one hand on her belly, the other covering her mouth as sobs broke free. She wasn't just losing Daniel. She was losing the version of herself who believed he would never hurt her. And the next time she confronted him, the violence would not stop at bruises. It would put her and her baby's lives in real danger. For the next 2 days, Emily moved like a shadow drifting through the penthouse, silent, slow, surviving. She tried to sleep, but nightmares kept jolting her awake. She tried to eat, but nausea twisted her stomach every time she thought about Daniel's words. Unstable, burden, embarrassing. She tried to breathe, but fear sat on her chest like a weight she couldn't lift. Daniel didn't come home the first night, or the second. He sent one short message. Stay calm. We'll talk when I'm ready. No apology, no concern for her or the baby. Nothing. On the third evening, the sky darkened early, storm clouds rolling over Manhattan like bruises across the horizon. Emily stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching lightning flash above the skyline. The baby nudged gently. She whispered, I'll protect you. I promise. But even she didn't know how. The elevator dinged. Her heart lurched. Daniel. He stepped inside the penthouse, rain on his coat, eyes sharper than usual, like someone who'd already decided the outcome of a battle she hadn't agreed to fight. Daniel, she said softly, we need to talk. He dropped his keys onto the table with a clatter. Yeah, we do. He didn't come closer, didn't soften, didn't remove his coat. He just stared at her as if she were a stranger trespassing in his home. What do you want from me? Emily asked, voice trembling. He exhaled sharply. I want peace. And you've made that impossible. Her chest tightened. I'm trying. What do you want from me? Emily asked, voice trembling. He stepped inside the penthouse, rain on his coat, eyes sharper than usual, like someone who'd already decided the outcome of a battle she hadn't agreed to fight. He exhaled sharply. I want peace. And you've made that impossible. It's not the pregnancy, Emily whispered. It's how you treat me. His face hardened. Here we go again. Emily held her ground. You brought Vanessa into our home. You threatened to use my mental health against me. You hurt me, Daniel. His jaw flexed. I barely touched you. You grabbed me, she said, lifting her sleeve. Emily stood alone in the silent penthouse, shaking uncontrollably. She felt the baby move frightened, restless, responding to her stress. She sank to the floor, one hand on her belly, the other covering her mouth as sobs broke free. Daniel's gaze flicked to it, but not with guilt, with irritation. Stop dramatizing. If someone saw that, they'd think I was abusive. I think you were, Emily whispered. That was the moment something inside him snapped. Before she could step back, he crossed the room in 3 long strides and slammed his hand onto the wall beside her head. Emily flinched so hard her shoulder hit the window. His breath was hot, uneven. Don't ever say that again. Her pulse raced. Daniel, stop. You're scaring me. Good, he growled. Maybe fear is what you understand. The baby kicked violently, reacting to the tension. Emily pressed her hands protectively to her belly. You're stressing the baby. Then stop making me angry. She shook her head, tears spilling. I'm not. I swear. I'm not. Daniel's eyes, once charming, once gentle, were now cold and calculating. If you keep acting like this, you won't be raising that child. I'll make sure of it. Emily froze. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a chilling whisper. You think a court will choose you? A hysterical pregnant woman seeing social workers? Or a stable, successful father who's trying to help? A sob escaped her. Daniel. Please. He moved closer, too close. Emily stepped away, but her foot caught the rug. In an instant, she stumbled backward and hit the corner of the marble countertop. A sharp pain shot through her side. She cried out, clutching her belly as another pain followed, deep, twisting, terrifying. Herr Knie spackle. She collapsed to the floor. Daniel stepped back, shocked. Oh, for God's sake, Emily, get up. Herr Knie spackle. Herr Knie spackle. Daniel. Her voice broke as another wave hit her like fire, tearing through her abdomen. Something's wrong. The baby. Please help me. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating his face. And for the second time in her life, Emily saw it clearly. He wasn't going to help her. Not now. Not ever. And what he did next would push Emily closer to death than she had ever been before. Emily lay on the cold marble floor, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Every inch of her body screamed with pain. It radiated from her abdomen like a wave of fire rolling through her. Her hands shook uncontrollably as she clutched her belly, trying to protect the tiny life inside her. Sweat gathered on her forehead. Her vision went blurry at the edges. She wasn't sure if she was going to pass out. Daniel, she choked out, her voice thin and broken. Please help me. I can't. He didn't move. He just stood there, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes fixed on her as if she were an inconvenience he wished he could sweep aside. For a moment, she saw something like fear cross his face, but not fear for her, fear of what this meant for him. What do you want me to do? He snapped. You always turn everything into a disaster. Emily felt another sharp stab in her abdomen. Her body curled forward involuntarily. This wasn't normal pregnancy pain. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She tried to breathe, tried to focus. Call 911, she gasped. Please. I'm begging you. Daniel ran a hand through his hair in frustration. And tell them what? That my pregnant wife is overreacting again? You're not dying, Emily. You're just... He paused when she let out a cry so raw, so full of agony, it echoed through the entire penthouse. Please, she whispered again, barely audible. Our baby. Something's happening. Daniel shook his head, exasperated. I have a meeting. I can't stay here all night because you decided to have a meltdown. Emily stared at him, disbelief anchoring her to the floor. How could he look at her, his wife, the mother of his unborn child, in this much distress and feel nothing but annoyance? Lightning flashed outside, lighting the room in a cold blue glare. "Daniel, I'm bleeding," she finally managed. That made him freeze. Emily lifted her shaking hand. It was smeared with red. Daniel's face changed, not with sympathy, but panic. "Jesus. Emily, what did you do?" "What did I?" she breathed, horrified. "Daniel, I fell. You grabbed me. I hit the counter." Another wave of pain cut her sentence short. Emily lifted her shaking hand. It was smeared with red. Emily's tears blurred her vision. "Please, just call someone." He looked at her, then at the door, then back at her. "I can't be involved in this right now," he said under his breath. "Not with everything happening at the firm. Not with Vanessa. This could ruin everything." Daniel stepped back like he was distancing himself from blame, from her, from the entire situation. "I didn't do anything," he muttered. "If something's wrong, it's because you weren't careful. You've been unstable for weeks." The final piece of the truth landed in her chest. With what little strength she had, Emily reached for her phone on the counter. She couldn't stand, couldn't crawl, but she could stretch her trembling fingers across the floor. Daniel watched her struggle. He didn't bend down. He didn't even speak. Daniel watched her struggle. He looked at her, then at the door, then back at her. "I can't be involved in this right now," he said under his breath. "Not with everything happening at the firm. Not with Vanessa. This could ruin everything." As the phone rang, Daniel cursed under his breath. "I'm not staying here for this." He grabbed his coat and headed for the door. He didn't even speak. Emily's voice cracked. "Don't leave me." The door slammed so hard the walls shook. For a moment, Emily lay completely still, the phone pressed against her cheek, the sound of the dispatcher's voice faint in her ear. Her tears fell freely now, hot and terrified, dripping onto the cold marble beneath her. She was alone. Truly, completely alone. And as the ambulance raced toward the building, someone else, someone unexpected, was already on their way to save her. The wail of distant sirens grew closer, echoing up the walls of the high-rise as Emily fought to stay conscious. Her head rested sideways on the cold marble floor, her cheek pressed against the tile. Every breath felt like dragging air through broken glass. She could taste fear, metallic, bitter, unforgettable. The baby moved beneath her trembling hands, a faint flutter that terrified her even more. "Hold on, please hold on," she whispered. The front door burst open. At first, Emily thought she was hallucinating, but then she heard footsteps fast, running, purposeful. A familiar voice called out, "Emily, Emily." It wasn't Daniel. It was Lucas, Daniel's young assistant. He sprinted across the penthouse, eyes widening with shock when he saw her collapsed on the floor. His phone slipped from his hand as he dropped to his knees beside her. "Oh my God, Emily, what happened? Are you—" His voice cracked with panic. "You're bleeding." Emily tried to speak, but only a strangled sound escaped. Lucas swallowed hard, his face pale. "I came because I heard Daniel yelling earlier when he left the office. He said things that didn't sound right. Something told me to check on you." Emily could barely process his words. Pain surged again. She cried out, gripping his sleeve. "Okay. Okay. I've got you," he said, voice shaky but determined. "Don't move. The ambulance is almost here." She blinked slowly, vision flickering. "Daniel left me. Here." Lucas's jaw tightened. I know what he's been doing. I've seen too much. I should have helped sooner." Emily's body tensed as another wave of pain slammed through her. She gasped. "The baby." Lucas squeezed her hand. "You're not alone. Do you hear me? I'm right here. Stay with me." He pulled off his jacket and gently placed it under her head to lift her from the hard floor. His hands shook as he dialed the building's front desk. "This is Lucas Brown. I'm with Mrs. Carter. Emergency medical team is arriving. Get them up here now." The elevator dinged seconds later, followed by hurried footsteps. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. Their voices overlapped, urgent, commanding. "She's in active distress, pulse elevated, blood loss noted." Abdominal trauma likely get her stabilized. Emily clutched Lucas's sleeve again, fear flooding her chest. Don't leave. I won't, Lucas promised. I'll follow the ambulance. A paramedic leaned down, his voice firm but gentle. Ma'am, we need to lift you. Stay still. We're going to take you and the baby to the hospital now. Emily tried to nod, but her vision blurred again. The room tilted. She felt weightless for a moment as they lifted her onto the stretcher. The ceiling lights streaked across her eyes as they wheeled her toward the elevator. Lucas followed close behind, refusing to step back even when paramedics told him to give space. I'm coming with her, he said. She doesn't have anyone else. When they reached the lobby, the storm outside had grown violent. Rain hammered the pavement. Wind howled between buildings. The ambulance lights flashed red against the glass doors, a haunting reflection of chaos. As they loaded her inside, Emily whispered, "Thank you." Lucas leaned closer. "I'm not letting him get away with this, not anymore. There are things you need to know about Daniel, things I should have told you." Emily's eyes fluttered weakly. "What things?" Lucas hesitated, then said something that made her heart drop. "Daniel's been planning this for months. He's not just cheating on you. He's building a case to take everything from you, including the baby." Emily's breath hitched. "Why?" Lucas shook his head, shame on his face. "Because he thinks you're in the way." Her world spun again. The sirens wailed. Emily's vision went dark. And when she woke in the hospital, she would learn a truth far more devastating than Daniel's betrayal. When Emily opened her eyes, the world was blurry and washed in white. For a moment, she couldn't tell if she was alive or stuck in some in-between place. Then the steady beep of a heart monitor brought her back. The smell of antiseptic filled her lungs. A soft blanket covered her legs. She was in a hospital bed, and she was alone. Her first instinct was to reach for her belly. Her hands trembled as she slowly placed them there. "Please, please," she whispered. A faint movement answered. Her baby was still alive. Tears spilled down her temples. Relief washed through her so powerfully it made her dizzy. She exhaled a shaky breath, pressing both hands gently against her stomach. A moment later, the door opened, and Dr. Grace stepped in, wearing navy scrubs and an expression that blended relief with concern. "You're awake," she said softly. "Thank God." She came to the bedside, checking Emily's vitals with practiced hands. "You scared us." Emily swallowed hard, voice raspy. "The baby?" "Still holding strong," Dr. Grace said, offering a small smile. "But you had a partial placental tear. We managed to stabilize you both. But Emily, this could have ended very differently." Emily closed her eyes, letting the weight of those words settle. "Did I lose too much blood?" "You lost enough to weaken you," Dr. Grace admitted. "But you came in just in time. Another 20 minutes. And—" She didn't finish. Emily's breath trembled. 20 minutes. If she hadn't reached the phone, if Lucas hadn't come, if the ambulance was slower, her baby wouldn't have made it. She blinked back tears. "He's in the waiting room," Dr. Grace said. "He's been pacing circles since you got here." Emily let out a soft, exhausted laugh. "That sounds like him," but then her expression darkened. "Daniel?" Dr. Grace paused. "He hasn't shown up." Emily felt that answer like a slap. "Not once?" "I called the number on your emergency contact file," Dr. Grace said gently. No answer. No callback. Emily turned her face away, shame and heartbreak swelling in her chest. He didn't care enough to come, not even to pretend, not even for the baby. "Emily," Dr. Grace continued, lowering her voice, "the paramedics mentioned you were found alone, and Lucas told us a little about what's been happening." Emily's pulse quickened. "What did he say?" "That you've been under stress, that there's been conflict, and that your fall may not have been accidental." Emily closed her eyes. Memories flashed Daniel's hand gripping her arm, her back hitting the counter, the sharp pain that followed. "He didn't push me," she whispered. "But he didn't catch me. He didn't help. He just walked away." "Emily," Dr. Grace continued, lowering her voice, The paramedics mentioned you were found alone, and Lucas told us a little about what's been happening. The word hung heavy in the air. Emily looked down at her hands. They were pale, shaking, bruised. I never wanted to believe that, she whispered. I kept telling myself he was stressed, or angry. Or maybe I was too sensitive. That's what every abused woman tells herself, Dr. Gray said, until it becomes a pattern that risks her life. The word hung heavy in the air. Emily's pulse quickened. What did he say? Emily stared at her belly. I don't want my child to grow up with him. A knock sounded at the door. Lucas stepped in, face drawn, eyes worried. Emily. He swallowed hard. I'm so sorry. She gave him a weak smile. You saved us. He shook his head. I should have stepped in months ago. I saw things. I heard things. I told myself it wasn't my business. I was wrong. Emily squeezed his hand. Thank you for coming. He hesitated, then leaned closer. There's something else you need to know. Dr. Gray stepped back, giving them space. What is it? Emily asked, bracing herself. Lucas lowered his voice. Daniel wasn't just cheating. He's been talking to Vanessa about Daniel, using your medical records, about painting you as unstable, about building a custody case before the baby's even born. Emily's stomach twisted. Why? Because, Lucas whispered, he's hiding something at the firm. Big money, illegal money, and he needs someone to blame if it all comes crashing down. He hesitated, then leaned closer. There's something else you need to know. Blame? Me? Yes, Lucas said. He needs a distraction, and he thinks you're the perfect target. Emily felt a wave of numbness wash through her. And that's not all, Lucas added. The firm is already under quiet investigation, and Daniel thinks you know too much. Emily's breath caught, and in that moment, she understood. Daniel wasn't just cruel, he was dangerous. And if she didn't protect herself, she might lose far more than her marriage. Emily stayed in the hospital for 2 more days while the doctors monitored her and the baby. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's face cold, irritated, unmoved by her pain. The bruise on her arm, the ache in her side, the memory of the floor beneath her, all of it kept looping in her mind like a broken film reel. Lucas visited every day. Dr. Grace checked on her constantly. Nurses offered soft smiles and warm blankets. Danielle never came. On the morning she was discharged, Dr. Grace sat on the edge of her bed and held her gaze. You're strong, Emily. Stronger than you think. But you need a plan. And you need protection. Protection. The word felt foreign, but necessary. Lucas waited for her by the elevator. He held a bag of her things and looked strangely nervous. When the doors closed, he turned to her. Emily, you shouldn't go back to the penthouse. She swallowed hard. I know. But I don't have anywhere else. You do now, he said. I've already spoken to someone who can help. Emily's brows knitted. Who? He led her outside into the cool Manhattan air and helped her into a cab. As they drove through the bustling streets, Emily felt a strange mix of fear and relief. For the first time in months, she wasn't returning to Daniel's glass prison. The cab pulled up to a law office in Brooklyn, a modest brick building with a simple brass plaque, Hayes Family Law Group. Lucas paid the driver and helped her out. Inside, a receptionist led them down the hallway to an office with tall bookshelves, warm lighting, and a soft leather chair. A man rose from behind the desk, tall, calm, steady, the kind of presence that immediately made the room feel safer. Emily, he said gently, extending a hand. I'm Michael Hayes. Dr. Grace and Lucas filled me in. I'm sorry for everything you've been through. Emily shook his hand, feeling the solidity of his grip, the kind of handshake that didn't intimidate but reassured. She sank into the chair as he continued. First of all, you and your baby are safe here. Second, you're not alone anymore. Something inside her cracked. She nearly cried, but she held it together, placing both hands over her belly. I don't know what to do, Michael nodded. That's why we're here. Let's start with the facts. Lucas took a seat beside her and opened his laptop. Daniel's been deleting messages, using burner phones, meeting with Vanessa privately. But he slips sometimes, I've collected what I can: emails, call logs, office memos. It's not everything, but it shows he's hiding something big. Michael nodded slowly. We'll need more. But this is a strong start. Emily looked between them, two people who didn't owe her anything, yet were risking a lot to help her. I don't want a war, she whispered. I just want to protect my baby. Michael leaned forward. War came to you, Emily. You're not choosing it. You're surviving it. She felt tears burn the corners of her eyes. Lucas cleared his throat. There's something else. Daniel told Vanessa he's moving money around because he expects an audit. And he said... Lucas hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. He said if anything goes wrong, he'll use Emily's instability to divert attention. Emily's stomach turned. He planned that. While I was pregnant? Yes, Lucas said. He's preparing to make you the scapegoat. Michael rested his hands on his desk. Emily, you need to secure your own evidence. Photos of your injuries, medical reports, texts. Anything you have. Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. I have some messages. And I have my medical file from the hospital. That's good, Michael said. But we'll need more. And getting it means going back to the penthouse. Emily stiffened. I can't face him. You won't, Michael said. We'll go together. Lucas will come. We'll get in, take what you need, and get out. Daniel can't stop you from retrieving your own belongings or your own documents. Emily took a deep breath. Okay. Michael gave a small, reassuring smile. When you're ready. As she stood to leave, her legs trembling, she felt a shift, small but powerful. She wasn't the helpless wife lying on the floor anymore. She wasn't the woman begging Daniel to care. She was a mother, and she was done being afraid. What she didn't know was that Daniel was already preparing a trap inside the penthouse, one meant to destroy her before she could destroy him. 2 days later, Emily returned to the penthouse she once called home, not as a wife, not as someone begging for Daniel's attention. This time, she walked in with purpose, and she wasn't alone. Michael walked beside her, calm and professional, coat buttoned neatly over his suit. Lucas followed behind, carrying a slim folder and glancing around nervously. Even the lobby staff, who had seen bruises they were never allowed to ask about, seemed to stand a little straighter as Emily entered. The elevator ride felt endless. Emily clutched her purse tightly, her palms sweating against the strap. The baby kicked softly, as if sensing her anxiety. Michael noticed. We'll be in and out, he said. We're here for your belongings and whatever documents you need. Nothing else. Lucas added, and Daniel's not home. I checked his calendar. He's at a client meeting on Park Avenue. Emily nodded, though fear still curled in her stomach. I just want this to be over. When the elevator doors opened, her breath hitched. The hallway smelled the same, clean, cold, expensive, but everything felt different now. This wasn't safety. This was a battlefield. Michael placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Whenever you're ready. Emily unlocked the door. The penthouse was spotless, too spotless, as if scrubbed of any trace of her. Fresh flowers, white lilies, sat on the marble island. But something about the stillness made her skin crawl. Lucas stepped ahead cautiously. I'll check the bedroom. Emily moved toward the living room, her gaze catching the faint outline on the floor where she had once lain bleeding. Her knees weakened, but she forced herself forward. She needed to gather documents, insurance files, financial statements, anything with her name on it. Michael quietly scanned the bookshelves. He didn't lock up any of the shared documents. That's good. We're well within your rights to take copies. Emily opened a drawer in Daniel's desk. Empty. She tried another drawer. Also empty. Her stomach twisted. He cleared everything out. Michael frowned. That's not a good sign. Suddenly, Lucas called from the hallway. Michael? Emily? You both need to see this. They hurried to the bedroom. Lucas stood beside the nightstand, holding a printed email. Emily recognized the header immediately. It was company letterhead. Her pulse thudded. What is that? Lucas handed it to Michael. It was left out, purposefully. Michael scanned it, his jaw tightening. This is a draft statement. About you. Emily's heart dropped. What does it say? Michael hesitated. Emily, it says you've become emotionally volatile due to pregnancy. That you've been showing signs of delusion. That you've threatened self-harm. Emily felt the room tilt. That's not true. None of that is true. Michael met her eyes. He wrote this to present to HR, to the police, to the court. This is the narrative he's building. Emily covered her mouth, shaking. He wants to make me look unstable. Lucas added in a low voice. It was on top of the nightstand. He wanted you to find it. A trap. A psychological blow meant to rattle her before she ever stood in front of a judge. A trap. Michael nodded. And he wants you isolated. That's why we came with you. A psychological blow meant to rattle her before she ever stood in front of a judge. Emily backed away, breathing shallow. He's doing this on purpose. He wants me scared. Emily froze. Footsteps echoed through the entryway, slow, deliberate, familiar. Daniel's voice followed, cold as glass. I knew you'd come crawling back. Emily felt her blood run cold. Michael stepped in front of her instantly. Legally, she's allowed to retrieve her belongings. You need to step back, Mr. Carter. Daniel ignored him, eyes locked on Emily like a predator spotting wounded prey. Funny, he said, how you always need an audience when you want to play the victim. Emily clutched her belly protectively. Daniel took one step closer. Michael's voice hardened. That's close enough, Daniel smirked. Or what? She's already unstable. I'm just trying to help. Emily shook her head fiercely. No, not anymore. Something dark flickered in Daniel's eyes. And then he reached into his coat and pulled out something that made Emily's breath stop. A thick envelope. He tossed it onto the bed. You want proof? There it is. Everything I've prepared. Everything you're up against. Emily stared at the envelope. Her future. Her fight. Her nightmare sitting inches from her hand. And when she opened it, she would discover the weapon Daniel planned to use to destroy her completely. For a moment, none of them moved. The envelope sat on the bedspread like a bomb waiting to detonate. Emily's breath came shallow, her pulse thudding in her ears. Daniel stood near the doorway, arms crossed, face carved from stone. Michael blocked Emily protectively while Lucas hovered behind her, wide-eyed and tense. Emily forced herself to speak. What is that? Daniel's smirk didn't reach his eyes. The truth. Or at least the version everyone will believe. Michael stayed steady. Emily doesn't have to open anything under pressure. Oh, she'll open it, Daniel snapped. She wanted honesty. So let's be honest. Emily swallowed hard. With trembling hands, she reached for the envelope. Daniel didn't move, he just watched, satisfied. She slowly pulled the papers out and unfolded the first page. Her stomach dropped. It was a compiled incident log, fabricated notes, typed neatly, dated over the last few months. Each entry twisted real events into lies. Emily burst into hysterics without reason. Emily swallowed hard. With trembling hands, she reached for the envelope. Daniel didn't move, he just watched, satisfied. She slowly pulled the papers out and unfolded the first page. Her stomach dropped. Emily admitted she feels unsafe with the baby. None of it was true, but written on letterhead, formatted like a professional wellness report, signed not by a real doctor, but forged with the name of someone Daniel claimed to know. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. This is all lies. Daniel shrugged. Perception is reality, sweetheart. Michael's jaw tightened. This is fraud. Fabrication of medical statements is a crime. Daniel's smile sharpened. Not if she can't prove it. And trust me, pregnancy hormones and emotional episodes make for a very believable story. Emily felt like the floor was tilting under her feet. She flipped to the next document. A custody petition draft. Her name under unstable parent. A section implying she might pose emotional harm to the child. A list of concerns that painted her as paranoid, delusional, unfit. Tears blurred her vision. How could you do this to me? Daniel stepped forward, his voice low and venomous. You were supposed to make my life easier. Instead, you became a liability, crying, complaining, dragging me down. This, he gestured to the papers, is how I protect myself. Emily's entire body trembled. From your pregnant wife? Daniel leaned in slightly, ignoring Michael's warning glare. From anyone who threatens my future, including you. Lucas spoke up, voice breaking. Emily is not unstable. Daniel? This is psych. Shut up, Lucas, Daniel snapped. You're an assistant, not a hero. Something in Lucas hardened. Maybe not, but I'm not your accomplice anymore. Daniel rolled his eyes. You have no idea what you're inserting yourself into. Michael stepped forward now, his voice steady but cold. Mr. Carter, everything in this envelope will be turned over to the court, and your fabrications only strengthen Emily's case. Daniel laughed, short and sharp. My case is airtight. Hers is a tragedy waiting to happen. Emily pressed the documents to her chest, shaking. Why? Why do you want the baby so badly? You've ignored us. You left me on the floor. Daniel's expression flickered just a fraction, but enough for Emily to catch it. Fear. Not for her. Not for the baby. For himself. Michael caught it too. What is the firm investigating, Daniel? Daniel stiffened. Nothing that concerns you. Lucas stepped closer, voice trembling but brave. He moved money, Emily. I've seen the spreadsheets. He's funneling funds into offshore accounts. Vanessa's helping clean the PR trail. Emily's eyes widened. That's why you need the custody case, to discredit me before anything comes out. Daniel's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. Emily steadied herself against the bed frame. If I'm unstable, then nothing I say can be trusted. I can't testify. I can't expose you. Daniel didn't deny it. The silence was more powerful than words. Emily felt something shift inside her, a spark. A new strength. Not loud, not dramatic. Quiet. Fierce. Anchored. This ends today, she said, voice trembling but determined. Daniel's eyes turned flat, dangerous. You're not strong enough to fight me. Emily lifted her chin. I don't have to be strong alone. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. Lucas moved beside her. The three of them standing together made Daniel's confidence falter for the first time. And then, someone knocked on the penthouse door. Hard, sharp, official. Daniel's face drained of color, because the person outside was about to shatter Daniel's illusion of control forever. The knock at the penthouse door was sharp enough to silence all four people in the room. Daniel froze mid-breath, his confidence cracking like thin ice. For the first time since Emily had known him, he looked truly afraid. Michael stepped slightly in front of her, protective. Are you expecting someone, Mr. Carter? Daniel didn't answer. His jaw flexed. His eyes darted toward the hallway like he was calculating an escape route. The knock came again harder. Lucas whispered, That's not normal. Who knocks like that in this building? Emily's pulse quickened. Whoever stood on the other side wasn't a friend. Daniel swallowed. Don't open that. But it was too late. A voice on the other side called out clearly through the thick penthouse door. Daniel Carter, NISEC Investigation Division. We need to speak with you. Emily gasped. Lucas's eyes widened in shock. Michael straightened, gaze sharp as a blade. Daniel went pale. They weren't supposed to, damn it. The officers knocked again, more urgently. Mr. Carter, we have legal authority to enter. This is regarding your firm's financial discrepancies. Emily felt the world slow. This wasn't her imagination. This wasn't paranoia. Daniel was hiding something big enough to trigger a state-level investigation. Michael's voice was low but firm. Emily, you need to step back. But Daniel moved first. He snatched the envelope from her hands, ripping the papers as if shredding lies could erase the truth. None of this touches me, he muttered, panic cracking his calm facade. They don't have proof. They can't have proof. Lucas stepped forward. You idiot. They clearly do. You don't get a NISEC knock without evidence. Daniel shot him a murderous glare. I swear. If you opened your mouth to anyone, Lucas didn't back down this time. I didn't have to. You left your mess everywhere. The knocking became a pounding. Open the door, Mr. Carter. Emily suddenly felt the need to breathe deep, steady, empowering breaths. She wasn't the one shaking now. Daniel was. The man who had once towered over her, gripping her arm hard enough to bruise, now stood trembling like a boy caught stealing. Michael turned to Emily. "This is it. Let me handle them. You stay with Lucas." But Emily surprised them all. "No," she whispered. "I want to see him finally face something he can't control." Before anyone could stop her, she stepped out of the bedroom. The living room lights glowed softly across the polished floor, so familiar, yet suddenly foreign. She walked toward the door with a steadiness she didn't recognize, gripping her belly gently. It wasn't weakness. It was resolve. "No," she whispered. "I want to see him finally face something he can't control." She nodded. "I've been pushed down, shut out, lied to, hurt. Tonight, I want to stand." Michael opened the door. Two NISEC officers entered, badges raised. One held a folder thick with paperwork. "Daniel Carter?" the lead officer said. Daniel straightened his shoulders, trying to regain his mask. "This is a misunderstanding. My lawyer—" "We've reviewed your accounts," the officer interrupted. "We've also received preliminary statements from internal witnesses." Daniel's eyes flicked toward Lucas with venom. "You—" Lucas shook his head. "Not me. You dug your own grave." The officer continued. "We'll need you to come with us for questioning regarding offshore transfers and falsified compliance reports." Daniel barked a laugh, desperate and unhinged. "This is ridiculous. She," he pointed at Emily, "is unstable. She's trying to destroy me." The officer turned to Emily. "Ma'am, are you safe here?" Emily met Daniel's eyes for the first time without fear. Not with him. That was it. That was the moment Daniel broke. He lunged forward, not at her, but toward the shredded papers on the ground, as if gathering them could salvage his crumbling lies. Officers grabbed his arms, restraining him. "Let go of me," Daniel roared. "She's lying. She's manipulating all of you. I'm the victim here." But nobody listened, because for once the truth was louder than his voice. As they cuffed him and began escorting him toward the door, Daniel twisted back toward Emily, eyes burning. "This isn't over." Emily held her ground. "It is for me." The door closed behind him. Silence filled the penthouse, thick and heavy, but no longer suffocating. Lucas let out a long breath. Michael touched her shoulder gently. "You did it," he said quietly. "You stood up." Emily exhaled slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks, not from fear this time, but from release. But her relief lasted only seconds, because Michael's phone buzzed, and when he answered, his expression changed instantly. He turned to Emily. "That was Dr. Grace," he said urgently. "The stress, it's triggered early labor." Emily's breath caught, and the fight for her life was about to turn into the fight to bring her baby safely into the world. Emily's early labor came fast, sharp, and terrifying. Michael rushed her to the hospital while Lucas followed close behind. Dr. Grace's team moved quickly, oxygen mask, IV line, steady commands echoing through the delivery room. Hours blurred into flashes of pain and fear, until finally, a tiny cry broke through the chaos. "A boy, her son, alive." Emily sobbed as they placed him briefly against her chest. His skin was warm, his cry strong. "You're safe," she whispered. "I've got you now, I promise." But even as she held him, she knew this wasn't the end. Daniel's shadow lingered, his lies, his threats, his attempt to destroy her. And with him now under investigation, everything moved quickly. Emily's case became urgent, and Michael wasted no time securing legal protection. 3 weeks after the birth, Emily walked into family court with her newborn sleeping in a soft blue blanket. The courthouse buzzed with noise lawyers, reporters, clerks. But Emily felt strangely calm, as if motherhood had woven a new layer of strength into her bones. Michael walked beside her. "Today is about the truth," he said, "not his story." Lucas was already in the hallway, holding a folder so thick it looked like a textbook. "I gathered everything," he said. "Emails, texts, accounting records, the draft statements, security footage, all of it." Emily placed a hand over his. "You saved us." He shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just stopped being a coward." Inside the courtroom, Daniel looked different, smaller. His expensive suit didn't hide the tension etched across his face. Vanessa sat behind him, arms crossed tightly, pretending confidence while avoiding eye contact with everyone. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, took her seat. "We're here to evaluate emergency custody, allegations of domestic abuse, and concerns regarding medical safety during pregnancy." Daniel's attorney went first. He painted Emily as unstable, emotional, unpredictable. She experienced severe mood swings, he claimed. She endangered herself during pregnancy. She fabricated abuse. Emily kept still, hands folded over her lap, letting him dig his own hole. Then Michael stood. His voice was steady, controlled, devastating. "Your Honor, we have documentation of physical injuries confirmed by medical professionals, hospital records detailing placental trauma, photographs of bruising, and testimony regarding neglect during a medical emergency." He handed exhibits to the clerk. "And," Michael continued, "we have evidence that Mr. Carter fabricated a false narrative about his wife's mental state, including drafts of fraudulent medical reports bearing forged signatures." The judge's eyebrows shot up. Daniel shifted sharply in his seat. Michael pressed on. "We also submit financial records showing Mr. Carter's involvement in questionable offshore transfers currently under active investigation by NISEC." The courtroom buzzed. Even Vanessa stiffened. "And finally," Michael said, "we have eyewitness testimony detailing Mr. Carter's aggressive behavior toward Mrs. Carter, including leaving her collapsed on the floor during a medical emergency while pregnant." Lucas stood. "I'm that witness, Your Honor, and I'll testify under oath." The judge turned to Daniel. "Mr. Carter, do you have anything to say regarding these allegations?" Daniel stood slowly. "She's lying. They're all lying. This is a coordinated attack." The judge lifted a hand. "Enough." The room fell silent. She looked down at Emily, bruised, tired, fierce. Then at the baby sleeping in his carrier. Then at Daniel's wild, defensive posture. "My ruling is as follows," the judge said. "Primary custody is granted to Mrs. Emily Carter. Mr. Carter will have supervised visitation only, pending the results of ongoing criminal and financial investigations. Additionally, Mrs. Carter is granted a protective order effective immediately." Daniel's face crumpled. "You can't." The gavel struck. Case concluded. Emily exhaled shakily, tears welling in her eyes. Lucas hugged her. Michael placed a reassuring hand on her back. Across the room, Vanessa quietly slipped away from Daniel, as if abandoning a sinking ship. Emily leaned down, touching her baby's tiny hand. "We're free," she whispered. For the first time, she believed it. But the real transformation, the moment she claimed her new life, was still waiting just around the corner. 3 months later, spring settled over New York like a gentle promise. Trees along the Brooklyn streets bloomed soft pink, and sunlight warmed the sidewalks where mothers pushed strollers past tiny cafes. Emily walked among them now, no longer hunched, no longer carrying fear like a second heartbeat. Her steps were lighter, her breaths deeper. Her newborn son, Noah, slept peacefully in his stroller, one hand curled near his cheek. Her life had changed completely. The penthouse was gone. The marble floors, the cold windows, the shadows of nights she wished she could forget left behind like an old shell she had finally grown out of. Emily now lived in a warm 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, with large windows and sunlight that draped across the hardwood floors like a blessing. Soft blankets, hand-me-down books, and the scent of lavender filled the air. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't luxury, but it was hers. Every morning, she made coffee in her tiny kitchen while Noah babbled from his bassinet. She read gently from Women Who Run with the Wolves, letting the words remind her of her strength. She walked to the park with a stroller and watched mothers laugh together. And slowly, steadily, her heart began to heal. Daniel's world, meanwhile, crumbled. Headlines exposed his financial crimes. The firm distanced itself publicly. NISEC tightened its investigation. Vanessa disappeared from his life the moment his reputation hit the floor. And even in court, during brief supervised visitation hearings, Daniel looked like a ghost of the man she once knew, nervous, unraveling, no longer powerful. Emily didn't rejoice in his downfall, but she no longer felt guilty for surviving him. One afternoon, as she sat on a bench near the East River, rocking Noah gently, she heard footsteps approaching. She knew the sound before she looked up. Michael. He carried 2 coffees, 1 decaf for her, 1 regular for himself. His tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up, the spring wind brushing through his hair. He smiled softly. "I hope this helps you get through the afternoon." Emily smiled back, her heartbeat warm and steady. "You're becoming predictable," she teased gently. "Good predictable, I hope. The best kind." He sat beside her, watching Noah sleep. "He's getting big. I know. I feel like he grows every morning." Michael glanced at her, his voice softening. "And how are you growing?" Emily looked out over the river. The skyline shimmered, the sunlight dancing across the water. "I'm finally breathing again," she said. "Some days still hurt, but most days feel like a beginning." He nodded, eyes warm with something deeper than friendship. "You built this life, Emily. You created safety out of chaos." She felt tears prick not of sadness, but of gratitude. "I had help. You had courage," he corrected. A comfortable silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the soft cooing noises from Noah. Michael cleared his throat gently. "I want you to know, I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you want me to." Emily's chest tightened in the good way, the way hope feels when it's real. "I don't want you to go anywhere," she whispered. He took her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let her fingers slip between his slowly, naturally, like something long overdue. They sat like that for a long time, watching the water, sharing warmth. Eventually, Emily stood, lifting Noah carefully into her arms. She looked at Michael with a quiet, steady smile. "Ready to walk home?" "Always," he said. As they strolled along the river path, the city shimmering around them, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the fragile peace she used to beg for. A real one. Earned. Protected. Hers. No more marble floors. No more fear. No more silence. Not the fragile peace she used to beg for. Earned. Protected. Hers. And for the first time, fully and completely, she believed it with her entire heart. So that's how our story closes, my dear friends. And if you're still here, right now, then something in Emily's journey touched your heart in a way only real pain and real healing can. Maybe you saw a piece of yourself in her courage, in her fear, or in the moment she finally stood up and said, "No more." Her story reminds us of a truth the Stoics spoke centuries ago. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius meant that every hardship, every heartbreak, every betrayal is not the end but the turning point. Emily didn't rise because life got easier. She rose because she chose to face the storm with dignity, even when she was shaking. And maybe that's the message for you today. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. You deserve a life where love feels gentle, not heavy. Healing is not weakness. It's the bravest decision you will ever make. If this story moved you, even a little, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe so you never walk through these emotional journeys alone. We're building a community of hearts that refuse to stay broken one story at a time.